Hey, I'm back. How y'all doing out there in TV land, Wonderland, whatever's going on out there, land? A lot of nonsense. Anyhow, you're all aware of that. Wanted to just share something here that I received from an older couple who got to reclaim their securities package about a year ago, and shared some interesting stuff. Now, these people they're an older couple. They're we had a few emails back and forth, and the key thing that they did is they persisted whenever they faced what appeared to be a roadblock or a stumbling block. They worked their way around it, and they persisted. And it's that persistence that led to this. So I'm just going to give you this update. This is word for word. I'm not going to give you the name and phone number of these people because obviously people are going to call them, and I don't have authority to do that. This is for privacy reasons. You're not going to get that name or phone number. Regarding the eviction, the sheriff came and explained we could leave free willing or be arrested. We chose to get arrested. And in brackets here she's got, this was well worth my discovery. It took about 2 hours for the cops to show up. 3 cruisers pulled in. They handcuffed us and put us in separate vehicles. This is a husband and wife team. Of course, I was placed with a female officer in cuffs and placed in the back seat of her cruiser. She went on reading my rights and how I could obtain a lawyer, blah, 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 blah. Of course, she kept asking if I understood my rights. I kept responding with the answer, no. She then went on asking my name. I only gave her my first name. She asked for my last name. I told her I didn't have one. Beautiful. So she keyed in my vehicle's license plate number to pull up my name on her computer screen, which I had full view of, and where I noticed a word in dark blue, bold font attached to the all-cap name. At first, I didn't pay much attention until the female officer was getting annoyed with me when I wouldn't give her the last name. I told her my name is Nancy, daughter of John. The cop then asked, so your name isn't so-and-so, so-and-so, just the all caps name. I replied back, I'm the attorney for the person you arrested and charged. Remember, it's not you they're arresting, it's the person. I honestly can't tell you how many times she keyed in my name, both in all caps and lowercase. My name in lowercase had a different word in bold, navy blue font. You are correct. It doesn't say do not detain, but the word chosen to represent that meaning I clearly saw and read on her computer screen. Long story short, hubby and I were released. Cops said there was no charge and ripped up the trespass ticket, and we were released with no charges or any trespass tickets. The male officer, hubby was with actually asked him how he got that status. Hubby replied, I can't tell you in this setting. So the cop and hubby exchanged email addresses. And there you go. So that's from them. None of that is from me. And again, they got to reclaim the securities package approximately, I'm thinking approximately a year ago. The key is they persisted. They come up the odd stumbling block along the way. They persisted. Now they're still getting their feet wet. They're not done here yet, but just sharing that little piece of information there. Now I want to get into the nitty-gritty aspect of it, a little more nitty-gritty for people with the understanding of things here, what's going on. And I got to add here too, as people have been waking up around the planet to this slave system, if I can call it that, this enslavement legal financial system, people are waking up to that and starting to be proactive, involved in that. Those other powers are pushing back at the same time. It's just the world we're in these days. It's not as simple as cut and dry as it was, say, 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago for people to set themselves free. A little more complicated now, and it's not to do with the paperwork. It's got nothing to do with you per se. It's the ignorance out there, and these slave masters do not want us to be free. They can't stop us, but so that's some of the things people are up against. A lot of ignorance. You've got a lot of young people come into the government structure now, legal system now. No disrespect to the young people, but they're just not, they're different than my generation, for example, how they see and perceive things. And of course, we experienced things when we were younger that they couldn't possibly experience. So we kind of growing up in a different world into this world, where the young ones are born into it. And the other thing is, so it's a lot of ignorance out there, and a lot is being assumed and presumed. They are assuming and presuming that you are that person, that you are a citizen, debtor, trustee, and they have jurisdiction over you. The fact of the matter is they own that debtor, citizen, trustee, and it's when you take on that on your back that you become owned or property of the state. We've talked about all of this. That's what I want to go and get into a little further here. I'm just going to put a pause on this for the moment here and come back, and I will get into that. Thank you so much. God bless. Love you.
Now, it's important to remember here that there is no substance in the system. It's form, paperwork only. Okay, form only. Men and women are not in there. Persons are. Your house, your car, your TV, furniture is not in the system. The documents of Title I, deeds and instruments evidencing claim to or interest in those things is in the system. And that's what the government has, and that's what their interest is. Now, I've shown you this before. We're going to do it again. This is a certified copy of a birth registration from the government of Ontario. Right at the very top says Province of Ontario, and I'm talking about this part here within these borders. Okay, this is the original what the mom and dad filled out. They photostat copy this onto a long form legal size document. This is not the actual statement of birth. This is. There's reference numbers up here to identify it. It says Province of Ontario. So who the heck do you think owns this document? Who do you heck think owns the information on it, including the name John Paul Smith? Now, how hard can it be to walk into a court clerk, walk up to the court clerk and say, I got these charges. You want to do this within 72 hours. I got these charges, traffic ticket. I don't care what it is. Show the clerk the name on the charges is the same as on here. This says Province of Ontario. This belongs to Province of Ontario. You won't be passing off liability on me here today. It's not happening. Now, they might come back and say, but your mom and dad give you that name. Really? Are they implying that Province of Ontario, Canada is your mom and dad? Because there's nothing on here anywhere that says my mom and dad gave me that name. Nothing whatsoever. So you got to look at the evidence. What does the evidence say? Forget the hearsay. Get the assumptions and presumptions off the table. It says Province of Ontario. Province of Ontario owns this. It belongs to Province of Ontario. Okay? Birth certificate, short form. This is the extract. We talked about this in the very first video, intro to trusts, estates, and securities, but this is the extract from this. So this is like a new birth. This is like a birth of a baby, except it's a person. And again, has Ontario on there. Now you can't see it in this photocopy, but also has Canada in the background. Canada, 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 Canada. So there's no evidence whatsoever that your mom and dad actually gave you the name on these documents. The evidence is that it belongs to Province of Ontario. It's got Province of Ontario on the top of it. It says that. That's the evidence. That's what it is. Stick to the evidence. Take everything else off the table. Stick to the evidence. Just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts. So we see when your existence on this planet started with a piece of paper going to the government. So like I said, the government's interest is the form, not the substance. The form, the paperwork. Not the house, the car, the TV, the furniture. The paperwork. I'm going to pull up something here. Now, in the previous two videos, I talked about these two fellows, one who got an agreement with the Canada Revenue Agency that, yes, this is Her Majesty's birth certificate. It says Ontario, right? So that's why it would be Her Majesty's certificate. The Registrar General issued it for and on behalf of the Province of Ontario. Issuer, maker, got it? Maker, liable. If you make a promissory note, you're the maker. Whoever made it owns it, rules over it. Remember? Maker. Issuer, same thing. So they issued that. Now, so and then the other fellow, my friend Ange, he's any all business done in this name is done for right of Ontario or Canada, whichever is applicable. Same thing. They stop bothering him. So you see, these guys are hitting some truth on the table, taking the mumbo jumbo and the hearsay off the table. So by looking at the evidence, who owns the document? They may say your mom and dad gave you the name on it, John Paul Smith, but there's no evidence of that. Are they saying the Province of Ontario, Canada is my parent? Seriously, if we look at the evidence, what we see and what we do not see here in this document, it clearly belongs to Province of Ontario, and so does the name John Paul Smith on it. So do you, if you claim to be or identify yourself as John Paul Smith. In that case, you would belong to the province, you would belong to Canada. That's how they would get jurisdiction. We talked about these things. Now, the legal system is all about the form. Sorry. The form. I'm not going to show you what the form is or from their definitions. We'll get there. The papers, the paperwork, not the substance. A house can exist without paperwork, but the paperwork cannot exist without the house, the car, the TV, the furniture, you, whatever. So given the facts and the evidence, the state owns or has claim to the form, the paperwork, and we have an interest in that property. That's why we're securing the interest through the Reclaim Your Securities process, right? We're not taking ownership. No, we can't take ownership of what belongs to somebody else. But we have an interest in it, just like the banks don't take ownership of what belongs to somebody else, but they have an interest in it, right? And if you don't pay, they take the house. And then they sell the house and get their money back. That's how it works. When governments and the legal system are talking about property, they are talking about form, the paperwork, not the substance. Remember, there is no substance in that system. None. It's information, evidenced by documents, pieces of paper. They see and recognize form, the paperwork. However, if you come in there and say, yep, that's me, I'm John Paul Smith, and this belongs to the province of Ontario or state of or country of, whatever, then you just became property belonging to that country or state, whatever. Now, this is from the Personal Property Security Act of Ontario. Definition of collateral. Collateral means personal property that is subject to a security interest. Personal property, this is another definition from Personal Property Securities Act. Personal property means chattel paper, documents of title, goods, instruments, intangibles, money, and investment property, and includes fixtures but does not include building materials that have been affixed to real property. Even real property is not real property, it's a fiction. It's paper. Investment property, from the same act, means a security, whether certificated or uncertificated, security entitlement, securities account, futures contract, or futures account. From the Criminal Code of Canada. Now here's where you get the real meat, and you can find the same, basically the same definition, the Bankruptcy Act and all of the legislation, all their acts, when they're talking about property, they're not talking about the substance. Property includes tangible and intangible, real and personal property. Personal property is what? Chattel paper, documents of title, so on and so forth, of every description, deeds and instruments relating to or evidencing the title or right to or interest in property or giving a right to recover or receive money or goods. So now you have the confirmation of form only. That's what's in the system. That's what the government has. When you buy a new car, they get the new vehicle information statement or the manufacturer's certificate of origin. That's one of these pieces of property. Right? It's also a security. That's what this whole thing is about. So now you have the confirmation of form only. That's what the governments and the legal people see. So when we say business done in this name is done for Her Majesty or province of Ontario or the country, whatever it is, not me, whatever, we are referring to the form, not the substance. We're referring to this stuff. We're referring to the securities. We're referring to personal property, investment property, collateral in their system. That's what we're talking about here. People need to get their heads clear on reality and fiction, or reality, God's kingdom, land, the stuff that's, the substance, it's real, blah, blah. And this that's exists because these other things exist. Now, with respect to the birth certificate, again, this is just a photocopy. With respect to the birth certificate and the name John Paul Smith on it and other names of it, derivatives, you do know you are using a person and property that belongs to another, right? You don't own it. So you're not it, you're using it, but you're using property that belongs to another. Do you think it right that you profit or benefit from property, form, belonging to another? Is it possible there is a price attached if you do use it for profit? You accept the profit of someone else's property. Step back here. You are the bank, for heaven's sakes, the one funding, the source, not of this world. All of this, John Paul Smith, is of this world. It's not possible that you and I are of this world because we're of God and God created this world. He's not of this world. The person, however, John Paul Smith, is of this world. You could say that the birth certificate is evidence that Smith, John Paul's parents is the province/state and country named on the birth certificate, whatever it has on there. On the birth certificate you have. They may say the birth certificate is proof of the name your mom and dad gave you, but again, once again, there's no proof of that. It doesn't say that. It says province of Ontario. So when they're saying that, are they saying that Ontario, Canada is your parent? Yep. Think about it. They created the person. You know, your mom has a baby, they extract the baby, right? Well, this is an extract. You could say that this is in the womb of government, this long form. The original statement of birth is in the womb. When somebody makes application for a birth certificate, it's like a birth, and it used to be on a government website referencing the birth certificate, born without the labor. See, mom has to do the labor. Mom and dad do the wild thing first off, right? I remember when my grandson, his birthday there, I walked in the store to get a birthday card for his for him, and the first one that's looking at me in the store said, your mom shagged your dad. And I thought, perfect, there it is, because that's true. Mom shagged your dad, and poof, out came my grandson, first one. Little gems of light they are. I call them masters of disaster, but that's just because I love them. Anyhow, where did I leave off here? The issuer did not issue you, it issued a child of the state. If you look on the long form here, back to this, there's two names on here actually. Oops, upside down. There's a surname, and then in my case, there are two given names. But they register that into the system as name of child. So they take the surname and they take the given names and they combine it as one. It says right there, name of child. And that's what it'll be on the birth certificate, name of child. They take the two names, surname and given names, and combine them as one name, a name. The issuer did not issue you, it issued a child of the state. It gave birth to a person, extract. You have the applications made, they extract, like physical labor, except remember it's form only. So born without the labor is what used to be on the government website. I kid you not, the government that issued the certificates. Look at the evidence, what is there and what is not there. Stick to the facts so you see them, and keep and keep the hearsay off the table. Stick with the evidence. Clearly this document belongs to Province of Ontario. Both of them do. Nothing whatsoever suggests any of this belongs to me. Now they're going to want you to believe that it does belong to you, but it doesn't. Do I really want to be the beneficiary? Do I really want to be John Paul Smith? I know a lot of people, the beneficiary here, if there is one, it's the John Paul Smith on the birth certificate. We've covered all of this in the Reclaim Your Securities and on our Zoom meetings. This is the person that has the securities entitlement, not me. This, the person named on the birth certificate. Now, if I want to be the person named on the birth certificate, that changes everything. But I don't want to be the person not named on the birth certificate. I want to be the bank. I want to be the benefactor. I think we talked about the benefactor. Now, with respect to us using their person and their property, my interest, I can't speak for you people, but my interest is the stuff, the house, the car, the TV, the furniture, not the money. Whereas the government's interest is the money. I think I touched on this one of the two previous videos. And think about it, when they lay charges, it's always about the money. Money, 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 right? It's all it is. Here you owe us this much. And they'll even negotiate the amount because it's all free for them. Costs them nothing. People say, but yeah, people go to jail. Yeah, well, they make money on theirs on the prison bonds. So it's all about the money. It's money, money, money. They want the money. And I've told people, if you're going for recoupment, you will be perceived that you're messing with their revenue stream. So why don't we sit back here for a second and think, okay, this is their person and their property, and I don't want to be their person or their property. So how about I use their person and let them have the benefit? What about that? I'm just using it. Remember, they need us. I want to read you something here from the Holy Bible, 2 Corinthians 8-14. 8. I speak not by commandment, but by occasion of the forwardness of others, and to prove the sincerity of your love. For ye know the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, that though he was rich, yet for your sakes he became poor, that ye through his poverty might be rich. 10. And herein I give my advice, for this is expedient for you, who have begun before, not only to do, but also to be forward a year ago. I know it seems confusing. It took a long time for me to wrap my head around that. 11. Now therefore, perform the doing of it, that as there is was a readiness to will, so there may be a performance also out of that which ye have. I'm going to say that one again. Now therefore, perform the doing of it. The doing of it, not the talk. Talk is cheap, right? It's lip service, but the doing of it. So it's saying here to do something, the doing of it, that there was a readiness to will, intent, so there may be performance also out of that which ye have. For if there be first a willing mind, it is accepted according to that a man hath, and not according to that he hath not. Can't get blood out of a stone, right? For I mean not that other men be eased and ye burdened, but by inequality, that now at this time your abundance may be a supply for their want, that their abundance also may be a supply for your want, that there may be equality. So what they're talking about here is balance. You know, if you want to have it all, the cake and eat it too. That's not balance. You want to give it all to them. That's not a balance, so it has to be a balancing here. Like I said, my interest is the substance. Government's interest is the money. All right? So, this part of the Bible, they're speaking of balance, equity, fair play, equality, equity, fair play. Remember, we're using their person and property. Is it proper? I've asked before, is it proper that you profit from someone else's property? I've used the example before. Somebody borrows my car, which is, for argument's sake, my property. They use my car and they don't tell me they're going to use it for taxi service, so now they're making money off of my property. Is that proper without my consent? No. Absolutely not. So if I found out afterwards, oh buddy, I didn't authorize you to use my car for taxi services, and so whatever money you made, give it to me. It's my property. And if he doesn't, there will be repercussions. So same thing here. We're using someone else's person and property. See, the idea of securing through the reclaim your securities is not to get the money. It's to take control, right? Control. It's control. You don't want the money, or I shouldn't say all, but some people just can't get it past their head. If I get the money, then I'm the beneficiary, but I'm also the benefactor. Don't you see it, double-mindedness? You can't be both. You can't be the benefactor and the beneficiary. This is the beneficiary. There's no benefactor here. That's us. So as I say, if you want to be the beneficiary, you have to be John Paul Smith, then you cannot also be the benefactor, because as the beneficiary, you are their child, their person, and property. If I'm the benefactor, then I am the bank, the source of financial assistance, and that's where I am, and that's where I wish to be, and maybe you want to be there too. I don't know. That's up to you to decide. Just going to pause this for a moment, take a break, sip my coffee. Thanks. Years ago, we had our business in Toronto, and we bought some land out here in Campbellford, Ontario. Thought we bought some land. But I want to share this. If the piece of land was $35,000, this was 1989 prices. And we contracted with a local builder to build a home. It was the price worked out to $135,000 for the home. Again, 1989 prices, 3,400 square for the home. Nice home. So we made the deal. We gave them a cash down deposit, paper bag full of cash, and they built the house, and we moved in. Of course, we contacted the insurance company with respect to the insurance for the house, right? This is where it got interesting for me, because I knew at that time that you cannot insure vacant land. What are you going to insure? There's nothing to insure, right? So when I got the insurance policy from the insurance company, keeping in mind here, the land was $35,000 and the house was $135,000. Well, the insurance policy comes in for $170,000. 1990 prices now. Took a year. So I'm looking, well, that's not right. The house is only $135,000. So I phoned up the insurance broker and I says, oh, there's something wrong here. We paid $35,000 for the land and $135,000 to have the house built, but the policy here is for $135,000. That's not right. First thing she says is, you don't understand. And I didn't at the time, but what I understand now is this, is when we're talking about what they were insuring was the paper, the form, the marketable title, that property, not the physical stuff, this. They don't give a heck about the physical, except that the physical doesn't exist, then neither does this. Okay? If the car doesn't exist, there's no the manufacturer's certificate of origin. There is no manufacturer's certificate of origin. It can't exist. So these things of substance can exist without paperwork, but paperwork cannot exist without substance, or it won't have any value. Right? So it's the title, it's the paperwork. That's what they were valuing, not the. In my mind, I'm thinking the house, right? So this is what people got to get clear on this. Just a second here. Government's all about the form, and we're about the substance. That's where our heads are at. But their heads are in a different zone, and that's the reality of it. So again, if you want to profit from someone else's property, you're going to pay the price. Now, I shared in one of the two previous videos there that Canadians hold land, and if you're a Canadian, the Queen owns the land. And the Canadians hold the land in usufruct, which means you're entitled to the profits of the land/property belonging to somebody else. But there's a cost to that, and you have to do a service. Like I said, that would be in form of paying taxes and allegiance, homage, the whole bit to the Queen, which is not my queen or king or whatever. Neither here nor there. Same thing here. If you're using someone else's property and you're getting the profit, then you are using it as usufruct. But it's not your property. So maybe you want to say, well, I don't want that. It's your property. You take it. However, I'm not giving everything away here. Don't get me wrong. Because remember, without us, none of that would be there. Without us, there wouldn't be any of that paperwork there on the account. You know, John Paul Smith and the person wouldn't have documents of title to a house or car, or TV, furniture, whatever, business, whatever, if it wasn't for the man behind the scenes. Now, I can't speak for you folks, but I grew up in a home with 3 brothers, so there's 4 of us, myself included, Mom and Dad. So 6 people in the family in that house. Got it? That's the family. Never, ever, ever once when we were communicating with each other, did I say, is Steve Beck here? What about Dad Beck? Is he here? No, we just use first names, given names, right? That's all we use. Well, it's the same in the kingdom of God. In the kingdom of God, there's no surnames. But there's a surname here. That's why I say, you look on this document, the certificate of live birth or statement of live birth, there's 2 names there. Surname, get it? Surname, given name, get it? These are not the same. But the government did combine them as one. Now in here you got John Paul Smith. Okay, so there's a reason for that. And why I'm sharing this, if you want to be in the kingdom, and I'm not making this decision for you, this is for you to think about. Just sit back, okay, you're right. When I was in the family with Mom and Dad, we didn't use the surnames amongst ourselves. In the family of God, if you're a member of the family of God, the family, what do you need surnames for? You don't. It's only when you get involved in commerce and stuff like that all that kind of stuff comes into play. So the point being is that as children of God, as a member of the family of God, there ain't no surname. That's not there. It's not necessary. So the surname is a bit of a quandary. So how we come into the picture as the benefactor is there's no surname. And I'm using this person and property that belongs to someone else and making sure that they get the money. Remember I said, my friend, in front of a lawyer, says, we know you don't own the house. That's not quite exactly 100% correct. But he was talking about this, right? But who gets the money? That's what it came down to. The point was who gets the money. Now, if you're using someone else's personal property, and you know you're using someone else's personal property, then the last thing I would suggest you want to do is get the money. I would suggest that that's why everyone's in the debt and the hawk that they're in, because they're profiting off someone else's property, and there's a cost for that. Remember, these were never meant to be personal identification documents. They were never meant to be identity documents at all. No. Oh, and the government will accept this as proof of citizenship if you identify yourself, if you come forth and want that. They will accept it as proof of citizenship, but not because the office that issues the certificate authorized it. No, not at all. You can present it anywhere you want, and they will accept it how they do, but it's got nothing to do with the issuer of the certificate. That's for them, but in the process, you've got to incriminate yourself. You've got to prejudice yourself. You're going to lock yourself in there that, yes, I am John Paul Smith, and I'm here to get some benefits and services from this fictional thing called Canada or United States, whatever. That's all that's happening there. So to get the liability, and this is another reason for reclaiming your securities, so even with the security game and lien process, it's not about me getting the money. I know people want to go for that. It's never been my thing. And it's not absolutely not necessary. Most people I talk to, they just want to have peace in their in their lives, their families, without all the financial and legal burdens on the back. And that's what I'm talking about here. I'm not talking about how to get the money. That's through the recoupment if people want to go down that road. That's why I've emphasized on selfishness is the root of all evil. Maybe you want to rethink what you're doing and why you're doing it. Not my call to make. And I can't teach about what selfishness is. Y'all notice my little pinky there? For some people that's 3. For some people that's 4. True story. Yeah, where was I going here? Shoot, just me pause for a sec. Yeah. So I said earlier on, do you really think it's proper to profit off someone else's property? And what if you had said to them, well, I'm just here to use it. It's your property. Here, take it. Take it. You have it. You have the use of it. You pay the bills. It's your person, your property. It's your business. I'm just using it. Right? That's why I titled the one video there, Friend or Foe. Friend or Foe. Friend or foe? Is he a friendly or is he a foe? Is he profiting off our property? And then he wants us, and this is the thing too, you're profiting off someone else's property and you don't pay the tax? That's dumb 101. You can use someone else's property, enjoy the profit, sure, but you got to pay the tax. That's part of the service. I said that, right? Property taxes, income taxes, other taxes, whatever it might be, you're going to be taxed. Everything that they're doing is a tax. Traffic tickets, all that stuff, it's a tax. It's a form of tax. In their mind, they've extended you a benefit or a privilege to John Paul Smith. And if you're John Paul Smith, then you're the recipient of that. But if you're not John Paul Smith, then you're not the recipient of it. Take rocket science. It's a really splendid day here. It's like almost the end of October, and we got to actually walked into the gym this morning with my shorts on. I haven't done that for a while. It's really good. And, I'm going to pause again and do a couple things. I'll be back. Thanks. I'm back. Yeah. So anyhow, we provide the information for through our information package, so on and so forth, Reclaim Securities information package and other information. But we can't do your thinking for you. So we got to go into the study work and things. But the main thing I want to emphasize here, what I'm trying to say is, and that's why I talked about the other couple there that basically got the do not detain thing happening. It was their persistence. When they met what appeared to be an obstacle or a stumbling block, they worked around it and they stuck to it until they got to the objective. I get emails from people, I did this, and they sent my paperwork back. So? Told you might be tested, so what if they send it back? How about sending it back to them with a little note on top? This is your junk. This is your stuff. Blah, 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 blah. But yeah, you have to do the thinking. We can't do that for you. And again, when you're out there in the real world doing stuff, we're not there beside you to say this and say that. If he says this, say this. If to tell you what to say when they come back with stuff. Let's say you can produce this stuff. They're going to come back. Happened to me 1,000 times. Oh, your mom and dad gave you that name. And that's just a number of years ago, and I didn't properly rebut that. It's not a problem now, but there's no evidence that my mom and dad gave me this name anywhere. Not in the legislation. It's not there. It doesn't exist. But what does exist, it says Province of Ontario, Canada. This is their property. It's their person. It's their property. If you want to profit from it, you're going to pay the price. But you can swing that back on them. If you had a chance to listen when King Charles, the new king, when the Queen died, they were doing some taking care of business with the Privy Council and the legal counsel for the king. And if you watch that video, there's a couple of things that were stated there that were very important, and Queen Elizabeth did the same thing, and that was they surrendered the hereditary revenue and the estates to the government for the benefit of all. Okay, now that estate, as it turns out, generates a lot more money than it costs to maintain the monarchy. They call this the sovereign grant. I'm not suggesting you're going for a sovereign grant here, but it's kind of like the same thing. Again, King Charles, the lady says, Charles has agreed to surrender the hereditary revenues and the estate to the government in exchange for the crown grant. Basically what that means is the government's going to pay the bills. So the government gets all the money, gets all the profits, and out of that they cover the expenses of the monarchy, and whatever's left goes for the benefit of all. And how they apply that? To reduce everyone's tax liability. This is why I keep saying if you flood the treasury, see, the governments have budgets, right? That money's got to come from somewhere, but if the treasury's overflowing, they don't need to come to you and I for it. They take it out of the treasury. But when there's nothing in the treasury, then they got to go elsewhere for it. So he surrendered the hereditary, and Queen Elizabeth did the same thing. I don't know how far back it goes, but surrendered the hereditary revenue and the estate to the government for the benefit of all. In exchange, you get to use the person. Think about it. Think about it. Think about it. And again, that old couple that got the do not detain thing, although different languages used, they persisted. They didn't come out and say, oh, it didn't work. Not once from them did I hear, never, ever, ever did they say it didn't work. Yeah, they met some stumbling blocks. They went through some bumps and grinds, but they got there through persistence. That's the other reason I say, people, don't put all the reliance on the paperwork. You got yourself in the equation, right? The paper is just an expression of your intent, your words. If you can do it on paperwork, you can speak it from your mouth. It's important to have the understanding. With that, love you, leave you, God bless. Letter God never fails. Not possible, so keep smiling. You will get there. You can get there. Stick to it. God bless. Love you. Bye. Ciao. Oh my God. Sorry, one more thing I meant to touch on here, and I'm going to do that right now. And that's this. This is from the Crown Liability and Proceedings Act of Ontario, Section 10. Property vesting in the Crown. The Crown is not, listen to what I'm saying here carefully, the Crown is not, by reason only of the vesting of property in the Crown, independent of the Crown's acts or intention, subject to liability and tort under clause blah, 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 in relation to the property. So what they're saying here is if property vests in the Crown, and it was not the intention, act, or intention of the Crown that it vested in the Crown has no liability. Whereas, it's not saying this, but like I said, it's what it says and doesn't say. Whereas if property does vest in the Crown, as per the will and acts and intentions of the Crown, birth must be registered, then the Crown is liable if the property form vests in the Crown. You follow me here? Property vesting in the Crown. Yeah, it's the Crown has the Vital Statistics Act, and they're going to register the birth whether you do or not. But it's the law that has to be done. Birth shall be registered, must be registered. That's the Crown's act and intention that's causing that to be. So in that case, yes, this property here and everything after this vests in the Crown because of the acts and intentions of the Crown, and therefore the Crown is liable. That's what it says. That's what it says. That's what it's telling you there. Now you got to see that so they own, as I've said previous video, they own the paperwork. So they would own the John Paul Smith estate. That's the shell, if I could put it that way. That's the estate into the trust. And they're holding it in trust. It's part of the trust. But we're the ones that's getting the other documents, i.e. the new vehicle information statement through registration goes into that. It's the registered owners of the estate. So the car gets registered to the estate. The government gets the form, the paperwork, evidencing title, interest in the car, right? Title to the car. We get the car. We get a little certificate of title. Well, our interest, every one of us has a property interest in the estate. We don't own the estate, but we own the property, if I could put it this way, in the estate. See, when you purchase the car, all the name stuff aside, technically that new vehicle information statement, I'm just using the car as an example, that new vehicle information statement or MCO should be on the front seat of the car. So when you get the hand over a check for $100,000 for a car, you actually get the paperwork that says I'm the sole owner of the car, but we never get that. That's what goes to the government, right? That's what they want. Let them have it. We're talking about equality here, right? That's what you want to be left alone. Give them what they want. And out of that, you get what you want. So it'd be an equality. Yeah, so, hang on. What? So all the property, the form that's in that estate in trust, that's vested in the Crown, that's property vested in the Crown now because of the acts and intentions of the Crown, and they are liable. But you can't be profiting off the Crown property in the process and have them take the liability. You're getting the money. You follow me? You're getting the money off someone else's property. So we all have an interest here. I guess I just wanted to clarify that. In that trust, in that estate in trust. So for sure there's a trust going on here. I'll make sure I clarified that here. Thank you. So let's say you go out and purchase a car, and I'm just using this as an example. You purchase the car, fruits of your labor, blah, blah, right? And at the end of the day, that new vehicle information statement goes to the government. You're the one that caused it to be there. That actually is your property because it's supposed to come with the car, right? We're the real owners here, by the way. We're the only ones producing behind the scenes. So they get that new vehicle information statement, but that actually belongs to us because it should have come with the car, which would mean would be in our possession, right? We would have it in our possession, in our safe place, and nobody could take the car now because you've got the actual ownership, proof of ownership. Call it a low deal title if you want. But that doesn't happen, and that's okay. If you do want that piece of paper, you have to pay the full price for the car out of your pocket. Government ain't going to do it. I guess is one point. Understand that? If you want that new vehicle information statement, that MCO in your possession and control, you're going to have to pay the full price for the car, or whatever price you pay for the car, a new car, out of your pocket. That goes to the government. You don't have to pay for the car, the price for the car. But all of this is in trust because it's our property. It's, again, they own the estate, but the deeds and instruments, so on and so forth, that go into that estate to constitute the property belonging to the estate, which is not the house, the car, the TV, the furniture, but the paperwork, we own that, but it's in trust. So I'm saying if you flip the usufruct back on them, now who's a usufructuary with the duty to perform? No brainer. Well, somewhat no-brainer. You got to think. Thanks. This is why we say we have an interest, or I have not abandoned the estate, my interest in it. My interest in it is all that paperwork that came with the car, the TV, the furniture that they got. Because it's all in the name John Paul Smith, right? So all of that, technically all that paperwork is theirs. So we have an interest in the estate. Not ownership, interest. And previously when I said using property belonging to another, it belongs to the other because it's in the trust. It's our property in trust. We are the grantors, right? And if the trust was to collapse, it would come back to us. Or if they caved the whole thing in, it would have to come back to the whoever granted it in there in the first place. So that's why I say it's our property in the trust. But out there we don't own it because legally speaking, the trustee owns it, right? So in that sense, now it's their property on paper. But behind the scenes, it's our property because we're the ones that caused it to be there. Part of the whole thing they're doing here is, we kind of started ourselves, but they want us to be the owners of the property that we're not actually owners of so that we can have the liability. So they can rape us, basically. Plunder, rape and plunder. But based on the evidence I've shown you here thus far in this video and other videos, it should be clear that they own it, but we have an interest in it because we're the ones causing it to be there. Without us, none of this would happen. Just like with God, none of this would be here. It's pretty straightforward. So I misstated myself there when I was talking about the house we had built and $35,000 for the land and $135,000 for the house. The insurance policy came in at $170,000. That's what got my attention. Well, we only paid $135,000 for the house, right? So my mind was thinking $135,000 what the policy should be for. But anyhow, my point is that I misstated myself. It was the insurance policy stated $170,000. So they had taken the land value, the price for that, which is real property, paper, and the cost, the price for the house, which is just more paperwork. Combine that into one marketable title valued at $170,000. So when somebody comes along and thinks they're buying the house and the land, they're actually buying that piece of paper that evidences the right to the house. That's what they're actually purchasing. Thanks. All right, that's it. I'm done. Got kind of a long video. So anyhow, love you. God bless. Talk to you later. And later, God never fails. Not possible. Thank you.